My first question is really easy, at least for you. What is the week? How was it born?
Yeah, so one of the things that we were obsessed with when we started is how come we face this climate abyss, and yet there are still so few people, just a small percentage of the population that is deeply concerned about climate change and really roll up their sleeves to do things about it. And yeah, maybe like us, you find it frustrating that colleagues or clients, or maybe even within your close circles, your friends and your family members, are maybe concerned, but not really active, not rolling up their sleeves. And so one day we walked with this crazy wild dream, and we were like, what if we created a tool, but really a super powerful tool, to help us and help all of us, all of you, reach out to this very wide range of the population that, yes, is not indifferent. They are concerned, but not actively involved yet. And imagine how much power or how impactful we could be, how much impact we could have, and you could have, if people around you were as fired up as you are here in the room. So that was the starting point.
Yeah, and in practice, so the week is basically a relatively short experience that happens within a week or less, where we help people, invite people to grapple so deeply with this topic of climate change and environmental destruction that they come out of it and sort of can't help but want to do something about this and become part of the mobilization. So we basically lead people through a grief journey. And it looks kind of like like, the farmer just showed, of, going from the old to the new. And in practice, what it means is that groups of people, so you can't do this alone, right? You have to do it with friends, with family, with colleagues.
People who matter to you.
And you come together 3 times during a week. That's why we call it the week. And every time you watch a 1-hour film that we've very carefully scripted and written and produced. And then we set up a profound conversation for people to grapple with this. And it's actually in those conversations that sort of the magic happens. And yeah, in these 3 episodes, you basically go through grief curves. So the episode 1 is sort of hard. It's everything that most of these people have been trying to avoid. But we bring it in a way that's emotionally safe for people to go there. Like Otto said, to go from basically understanding it here to be really impacted here. And then episode 2 is at the bottom of the U, deconstructing narratives, basically, talking about this 4.0. And then, episode 3 is going up the U and being full of energy to wanting to do something about this.
So sometimes we don't hear really, really well, so I just want to quickly repeat for the audience so that everybody understands. The week is, I'm going to say it with my word, I actually organized, I'm going to say it right now, I organized the week session with my neighbors 10 days ago to live the experience before interviewing you guys. Basically, you have to meet 3 times with a bunch of people between 3 and 8, right? Is that right? 8 people maximum? Depends, okay. So I did with 8
larger
neighbors.
Groups.
Yeah. And so
larger groups can then break down in smaller groups.
Exactly.
If they want to. So people have done it with hundreds of people.
Okay, I didn't know, okay. So you meet, you watch a 1-hour episode of kind of like a documentary you did, and we see you speak and you explain everything and lots of things, data, but also a system and everything in place with environmental issues. As you said, you're using the U of Otto, who is here, the theory U. So the first episode is really dark, if I may say, like we have all the data and it's hard to swallow. The second one, you are at the bottom, so the presenting really the bottom of the U, and then you go up and you go towards the solution and the emerging futures. Is that right? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's. I just want to share because we talked about that before doing the interview. one of my neighbors who is an architect, and she's been working with like authorities, public authorities for years. She was so thrilled. She was like, it's finally the content I needed for people, the decision making, to actually act. So please, really, I don't have shares there. It's not a company, like I'm not paid, but it's actually a really, really good content to see if you want to convince. We don't convince people, but if you want your relatives, workers, co-workers, whoever, to actually understand the urgency that there is to act. The week is such a good content, among others, obviously, but it's such a good content. Voila, that was my part. We're going to continue. So that was my reaction, but how do people react to that experience you created?
Yes, I'm happy to share more. Sorry, but share more about that. But quick question first: can you hear us well enough, or you mentioned that there's a sound issue, or we just go on, right?
Do you hear well right now? It's better, actually. Yeah. So
okay, good. Yeah, so thanks for sharing how it's been like for you to experience the week. And yes, by now there's been thousands of people going through the week as well. And the amazing thing is that we start seeing super organizers. So people who like it so much that they invite other groups. Groups they don't just do it once, but they invite other people to do it because they find it really powerful. Some of the participants also even offer to subtitle the version. So we have two versions, an English and French audio version. But we also have now 6 subtitle versions in Polish, German, Dutch, Spanish, Danish, and Swedish.
So we can share.
So it's nice to see it spread across Europe. And people organize it either at home or in their universities, in their communities, or in the workplace. That's a very important place where the week is watched and shared. And in the workplace, it can be, we see it spread in very large corporations, in very large companies, with thousands of employees going through it. But we also see it also in smaller companies, say where the entire staff, 30 or 40 people, they all go through, which is really powerful for them after, because they have a shared language, a common language, and shared goals when it comes to climate change.
You have to imagine like a whole organization that goes through sort of a grief process and comes out of it sort of energized to do something. So it's, you know, what we hear, it's really powerful to bring about sort of culture and system change.
In it's not a documentary, but like in the process, in the experience of the week, you bring up several times the tipping point. It's something that is famous for activists and people trying to bring change, the famous tipping point. Can you explain to the audience, to the people who might not be aware of it, what is the tipping point, and are you hopeful that eventually we will arrive to that tipping point and bring systemic change?
Yeah. I mean, we know about the bad tipping points, right? The climate tipping points that we absolutely have to avoid, but there are positive tipping points, you know, social tipping points, right? And different academics believe that sometimes when we just reach 20 to 30% of the population that is deeply convinced about something, you get a tipping point. And we see that in history, right? Like we've had these, you know, moments where suddenly systems tip, where we go from feudal systems to democracy, where slavery was everywhere and then it becomes unthinkable. And it can go sometimes very fast. And what often happens is that, you know, there's people who are leaving the old way of thinking. But in the beginning, you don't see anything until enough people do that and suddenly the system shifts, right? And I think that is our best hope, right? And that's what we feel like we can do, and that I feel everybody can do, because each one of us and each one of you in this room, we all have networks that we belong to in our communities, in our workplace. And so we can all play a part in helping more people get there so that we get there faster and hopefully get there in time. And yeah, the week is one tool that you can use to invite those people and, you know, get them to see things differently and go to the other side.
I don't have the right number in mind, but I think it's something like if 2% of the population, and stop me if I'm wrong, if 2% of the population is really convinced and really active, I think they can bring 12 something, 12.5 maybe, you guys know the answer, on, you know, on the other side, and that will bring the tipping point. Do you have data on that or the right numbers?
There's different data, and I don't want to go too deeply into this, but yeah, it sounds like a small percentage that are really active.
Make system tips.
Yeah.
And do you think we're close to that? Again, we don't have data, but can you give us hope at least?
Well, talking about hope, I'll speak for myself, at least. I'm not sure, this is not really a question that I ask myself, whether I'm optimistic or whether I'm hopeful or not. I just do. I go into action mode because simply I just don't want to have regrets. I want to be able to tell my kids, I knew what was happening and I've done everything I could. That's the only thing that matters to me. And action for me is the best medicine. It's the best antidote to anxiety or doubt or procrastination. And this is, the tipping points that Fred was referring to. That's the energy and the focus that I want to look at mostly. Yeah.
Frederic, are you hopeful or are you in action as well? What's your...
I agree with that. Like, I feel like, you know, depending on the news that I look at and where I look, I can be totally depressed. We will never get there. Like, it looks hopeless. And then I look at all of the amazing people and all of the amazing things that happen. And if I look at that, I cannot help but be hopeful. So which is true? I don't know. And ultimately, I've come to the realization that, you know, my projection doesn't really matter because I don't think I have a crystal ball. And so really what does matter is my inner fire, is me deciding I want to do what I can do. And like Helene says, like, I don't want to have regrets. You know, whether we make it in time or not, I want to be able to say, hey, I've done everything I could. And in the meanwhile, it's been an amazing adventure. I'm convinced about that, is that the next 10, 20, 30 years are going to be a collective adventure for humanity like we've never seen. And so the question for me is not so much, do I have hope or not, is, do I want to be in the middle of the adventure or do I want to be in the sideline? And, you know, the sideline sounds kind of boring, so I want to be in the middle. And so that for me is really the answer to that question.
Helene, as you were saying, the best medicine is action. So what do you want to share to the audience before we say goodbye to make them take action, to give people the envy to take action?
Well, there are many things one can do, but there's at least one thing that we can invite you all to do now is if you want to continue the work that you've been doing these days at ChangeNOW, then you can sign up for, you can sign up to watch the week on your own with your friends, with your group of friends or family if you want. But you can also try it first. And there's a special invitation that ChangeNOW is inviting you to. And there's a QR code that is probably on the screen.
Yes.
I don't know if you see it now, but 3 dates in June so that you can watch it together. And have the conversations afterward that Fred mentioned that are super meaningful after each episode. And it could be a wonderful way to keep having conversation and do the meaningful work that you've been doing.
So you can take out your phone and point it to, you know, to the QR code and see if those dates work for you. And that's a good way to test
June
it.
27th, 28th, 29th. And beyond that, feel free to invite your clients, your colleagues, your partners to do the week at a larger scale. And
the website is theweek.ooo.
So www.theweek.ooo. And feel free to invite people around you, your colleagues, your partners, your clients, because we often have larger networks than we think. So maybe there are small, medium, large networks around you that you could invite to watch the week with you. And perhaps there are thousands, hundreds, thousands of people you could bring to reach the tipping point that we were talking about.
And one more thing that I wanted to say we live on the other side of the ocean. That's why we couldn't be in Paris with you. But our friend and colleague Badraka, who's in Paris and worked for the week, is in the room. I don't know, Badraka, if you could stand up and make a big sign.
Hello.
So if any of you want to talk with us about the week, have any ideas, any suggestions, any collaborations,
Badraka is here.
Look at what Badraka looks like, and you can talk with him. Have conversation with him.
Thank you so much, Frederic. Thank you, Helene. Please make a round of applause for them. Thank you very much.